Dave Patterson.
Here.
Lloyd.
Here.
Brad Anderson.
Here.
Judy Anderson.
Good, all present, one form or the other. Are there any additions?
Mr. President, Mr. President, I don't think Judy Anderson is present.
That's right. She is sick. Sorry.
So all but Ms. Anderson.
All but Judy. Item number 3 on our agenda is, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda today? Hearing none. Number 4 is approval of the minutes of August the 19th, 2020. Everyone had an opportunity to read those minutes? Okay.
If there are no additions or corrections, Mr. President, I would move for approval.
Second.
There's been a motion made by Mayor Bennett and a second by Dave Patterson to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor, Mr. Auditor, call the roll.
John Marvel.
Aye.
Dave Bennett.
Aye.
Steve Witt.
Aye.
Dave Patterson.
Aye.
Sue Lloyd.
Aye.
Brad Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 under old business, 5.1, the update on the construction progress with Garmong and Brian Koistra. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. President Marvel, members of the board, Brian Koistra with Garmong Construction. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and provide you an update on recent progress with the Convention Center project. First and foremost, the project remains on schedule and within the construction budget. Recent progress, we've talked a lot about the Hilton Garden Inn North Lot, and we had planned on turning that over on September 11th, and in fact did that. So cars are currently parked there now. Immediately following that, the plan was to permanently close 8th Street on Monday, which that happened as well. And also the installation of fencing around the construction or the convention center site is currently in place. Upcoming activities, the convention center, site demolition. So the east lot of the Hilton Garden Inn is going to take place starting today. Also, the Hilton Garden Inn water meter pit, the new pit was placed last month. Tomorrow, the tie-in will take place, so there's going to be an hour or two long shutdown of the water service to Hilton Garden Inn, which has been scheduled with their staff to allow us to switch that water service over to the new pit. Also starting here soon, next Monday, in fact, will be the auger cast pilings. So you'll see a couple cranes in there with big auger drill bits that will be drilling down approximately 40 feet into the ground, 16 inches in diameter, and filling that with reinforcing steel and concrete, which will support the foundation system of the convention center. And then shortly thereafter, we will fence and begin work on the garage, which is located along Cherry Street. That work will start around the 1st of October. I've got some pictures of recent progress. You can see in the photos, this is the Hilton Garden Inn North Lot. Basically, the only item remaining is the landscaping, which per the landscape architect's direction, that plant material is not supposed to go in until October 1st. That's the optimal planting time for those types of plants. So it looks a little bare right now, but around the 1st of October, the landscaping will be installed. You can see in this photo, closing of 8th Street. So this is on 8th Street looking south. We're kind of standing next to the Holman Center looking towards Wabash. You can see the barricades and signage put in place. So what we're doing here is, you don't see it in the photo, but that street light there is flashing red. So to southbound 8th Street traffic, they have a flashing red light. And then on westbound Cherry Street traffic, there's a flashing yellow light. So we worked with the city engineer's office, and they were out there Monday morning to help accommodate adjustment of the traffic signals. What we're doing in this photo is, you probably can't read it, but it says road closed to through traffic, state office building access only. So we're maintaining access to the lot just south of the state office building to allow those workers to maintain parking in that building. Also, the next photo, you can see fencing located basically from the corner of the Copper Bar west to the Hilton Garden Inn, completely fenced in, and then the same takes place along the alley just north of that. Some project milestones, as I mentioned, turnover of the Hilton Garden Inn lot, that has taken place. Closing of 8th Street, that took place Monday. Gain access to Hilton Garden Inn East Lot. Thanks to all the hard work of Mr. Bosma and others, we received an access agreement for that lot yesterday. So work will begin there. We're planning on working starting today. So you'll see activity there immediately. As I mentioned, auger cast piling work, which is a major milestone in the project, that begins next Monday. And then Duke switchover of service. So I think I mentioned in previous updates, that city block is currently fed by an underground electrical network. As part of this project, that entire block goes to a more updated electrical feed with pad-mounted transformers, of which the infrastructure is in place. Duke Energy has been on site the last couple weeks, pulling wire, and I believe later this week they're going to begin setting transformers to allow the switchover of service to the Hilton Garden Inn to take place. We had originally scheduled September 22nd. We're working with the Hilton Garden Inn. I think that might get pushed a week or so because they've got, I think, full occupancy in the coming week. So we've got flexibility there, and we're going to work around their schedule. Below the line, a couple other kind of bigger dates within the project. Parking garage substantial completion remains at August 9th of 2021, and the convention center substantial completion remains at March 10th of 2022. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Brian, Steve tells me there's still an issue with one of the providers there at 9th Street, one of the utility providers at 9th Street. They haven't done anything with their.
Correct. So the provider is IFN. I think it's Indiana Fiber Network is what that acronym stands for. They, I would say, are partially complete with their work and have work remaining. We've been in nearly daily contact with them. Steve and his group at Nations Group have also been involved, and I'm not raising the red flag just yet, but that is really the lone utility relocation yet to be completed on the project. Right now, it's not holding anything up. I think as we get closer to late October, 1st of November, then the complications that will create to the schedule will become more apparent, but I'm confident we can resolve it prior to that. So it's just a matter of them getting on site and doing their work.
Mr. President, this is Brian.
Yes,
Can
Brian.
I ask a quick question? So For the other Zoom participants, did you freeze up a couple of moments, just for a few moments along the way, or is it just me?
I didn't see anything.
Okay, must be me. So I did not hear the substantial completion dates. I think is the only important thing I missed. So if Brian could go over those again. I just want to get them in my notes.
Sure. So parking garage substantial completion remains as August 9th of 2021. And the convention center substantial completion date remains as March 10th, 2022.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Any of the board have any questions of Brian? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Under old business, 5.2, an update on property acquisition with Brian Bosma from Kroger, Gardis, and Regas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian Bosma, Kroger, Gardis, and Regas General Counsel to the CIB. We've been working diligently to try to bring the transaction with the Terre Haute Hotel Partners, the Dora Group, and Fontanet, the Gibson entity, to a close. I believe we will be closing this week. There have been some access issues to this property that are historic, and I'm just going to mention these so that they're not a surprise later. The lawyers have determined to move forward, and owners of the property have determined to move forward and work out a couple of these issues after the fact, as they will require some additional survey work. So I believe as soon as we're done here and post-meeting discussion, I will be turning my attention to the closing documents that have been exchanging hands here over the last week, including the ones I've sent out. So I believe we'll be closing on both properties this week. Regardless, we have received an access agreement, as Mr. Koister indicated, for the east parking lot of the Hilton Garden Inn. So Brian, after making his arrangements with the local management, which I believe he's already done, can start rolling on that piece of property immediately. The Fontanet Group was less, they were more intent on closing rather than doing the access agreement. So if that should be delayed for any reason, I'm sure we can get an access agreement from them as well. The access issues are the following. We had pledged to Fontanet an easement between the convention center and the Copper Bar for the portion of the property that they are transferring to us due to setback requirements, so that they could have pedestrian access and outside dining there. That was a long ago discussion. We've committed to making that happen, but we can take care of that afterwards. It turns out that the long-standing easements across the east-west alley and the north-south alley between the northwest parking lot for HGI and the state office building, while they were recorded in 2014, they were recorded moments after the owner of the original property had transferred the property. So there's a pretty good argument that those easements are not effective. So we need to solve that. The other interesting item that the survey showed was that the current easement to exit our property and the state office building property to the west to 7th Street goes through an old alley, which is located where the handicap parking places are in the HGI North parking lot, and not through the existing alley way. That's a critical ingress, egress for our purposes. That's where most of our work, most of our deliveries, that kind of thing will happen. So that's one issue that I would prefer to have resolved prior to closing, so that we all know it's there. But given the circumstances and the fact that Mr. Koistra's bulldozers are fired up and standing at the gate, we will solve that one in good faith, hopefully afterwards. So the access agreement came kind of as a surprise last night. It had been pending for a while. It came late yesterday evening, and I sent it to John for signature, Brian for access. So that's the good news. Garmon can begin on that east parking lot immediately. Again, I think we will have property transfers this week, which removes all issues other than the post-closing easement issues, and I'm confident we'll get all those solved. So after a year and a half of discussion and pushing, looks like this week is the week.
Great.
Good.
I know I get calls early evening from Brian, still working on this project. He certainly has done a yeoman's job. Myself,
Did you say early? Did you say early evening?
well, sorry. All right, well.
Thank you, John. Mr. President, thank you for being accessible. This has been a kind of around the clock thing, so I called John and emailed John early, sometimes very late at night, to get signatures, and he's always available, and he's doing a great job for you.
Thank you, Brian. Does anyone on the board have any questions of our attorney? Hearing none, we'll move on to an update on the Larry Bird Museum by our owner's rep, the Nations Group, and Steve Bauer. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be with you. The Larry Bird Museum owner's representation contract with Mark Madursky is in the final stages of completion. And Mark will serve as the liaison between your already design team for the Larry Bird Museum, Hilferty and Associates, and the various parties who will be working to procure the memorabilia and coordinate the design, the final design of the Larry Bird interior portions. As you know, with regard to the base design for the convention center, we have left that space raw, if as it were. We've got walls. It will be conditioned, but it is in the vernacular of real estate development. It will be a raw space, no floor, no finishes on the walls. And so what Hilferty and Associates will do is bring that to fruition in a final design, so that it is a museum of some substance. Mr. Madursky will be the liaison between Hilferty and Associates and the board, and obviously working with myself and with CSO to make sure that we have everything coordinated between the two designs of the convention center and the museum. We are in contact with Mr. Madursky on a fairly regular basis, and we will have this contract completed in very short order. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions of Steve? Hearing none, we'll move on to 5.4, an update on the convention center management discussions. Steve or Brian?
Brian, you want to? Sure. I'll take full responsibility for that not being finalized. I have declared abstinence on all other business for the CIB, except emergencies, until we get these properties closed. If we don't close on the properties, we don't need a convention center manager. So, but as soon as this is done, we have exchanged a couple of different drafts and received some positive feedback, mostly through Mr. Bauer. But that will be my next order of business for the CIB, just as soon as we get these properties closed this week. And then we'll turn, Steve Bauer, you and I will turn to the Spectra.
And Mr. President, members of the board, even without the contracts have been going back and forth, and they truly are in the final stages. Spectra has been communicating with me on a very regular basis, a weekly basis. They have provided us with a number of comments and items with regard to the base design of the convention center that they'd like us to look at modifying. And these are minor comments, minor changes that we can make very easy in order to accommodate their operational requirements. So we are still working on that. We have a scheduled meeting with Spectra in Indianapolis in mid-October, where we will finalize all of those details and make sure that we have plans that we can immediately turn over to Garmong Construction so that they understand what those modifications are. I expect to have those modifications done and memorialized in plan revisions by early October. So we have not stopped anything with regard to our working relationship with Spectra, and they've been very accommodating. Be happy to answer any additional questions.
Does the board have any questions of Steve or Brian? Item number 6 on our agenda is new business. Does the board have any new business to bring? Hearing none? I'm sorry?
John, Jim, for what it's worth, food and beverage distribution, December was $108,894. So, except for, was it June and July, the COVID pandemic doesn't seem to be affecting our about normal.
That's great.
Jim,
That's good.
Jim, can you give me that number again?
It's $180,894
Okay.
That was for August.
for September. What we received in September, what would have been for 2 months prior.
Wow. That's great. And just while we're here, Jim, I'll be contacting you with closing distributions on the property later today
All right.
for wire transfers.
When is that?
Well,
When is that
it'll probably be today.
today? Okay.
All right, any other new business? Hearing none, our next regular board meeting will be October the 21st, and hopefully we'll be back in business here in the county, where we can open it up and hear from everyone in person. Before we close, I do want to acknowledge Rachel Leslie and RGL Solutions and her staff. I finally got on the website on Facebook, and if any of the board members or anyone else hasn't, that's just, they've done a very good job in keeping monthly up to date on how we're progressing. And anytime there's a holiday, Mother's Day, Labor Day, it's always a wish from the CIB to everyone out there, depending on what the holiday is. But if you haven't looked at it, get on and take a look. And Rachel, thank you very much. You're doing a very good job, in my opinion.
Mr. President, may I add one more item?
Yes, sir.
I stay, again, Brian Bosma, I stay in very close contact with John. I try not to inundate everyone else with emails and updates. I believe you all have my cell phone. If any of you have any questions at any time, feel free to text, call, email, whatever. Despite our distance, we'll keep you posted. But we're very close contact with John, and I'm happy to spread that out. But also don't want to plug everyone's life.
To further that a little bit, I do make contact with Steve Witt and the mayor when there are large items that we need someone other than just my opinion on it. So I appreciate their being available too. Is there anything else? Hearing none, have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We're all we're adjourned. See you next October the 21st. This coming October 21st. Thank you.
John?
Yes.
over there, Cleve.
Okay. Yeah.
Still.
Mhm. File books this size. It's just amazing, even on donated property, easements that have to be changed. Surveys, the environmental. That was a whole file that had to be done. So there's a lot of moving parts. Now that we have all of that, just grateful. It's in a garage when we finish that.
So we have Hilton Garden North property. What are the other two acts?
Just east where the convention center will butt up against the garden. That property there. And to the north of it is the alley. Down. Off those. And it's great. That's one alleyway. The north outfit was right behind the state office.
Wow.
And here's 8th Street. 8th Street? State office building is
The seventh right here?